Welcome back to the John Fourcade Show. One of our John Fourcade specials this week, a 2015 Mustang convertible. Only 1,444 miles on it, 24,941. Again, a 2015 Mustang convertible, only 1,444 miles on it, 24,941. No better deal than right here at Veterans Ford. Welcome back to the John Fourcade Show, sponsored each week by Veterans Ford. I'd like to tell you along with John Fourcade. John, this week, word kind of got out a little bit. Marcus Colston is going to get released by the Saints once the calendar year kind of starts in March for the Saints. And he goes down as the greatest receiver ever to put on the black and gold for the numbers that he's put up. The most amazing thing is, and we've talked about this so many times, never went to one Pro Bowl. I can't think of another receiver kind of in our lifetime that put up those type numbers and yet never went to one Pro Bowl. In the world today, when guys pull out of the Pro Bowl so quickly, right, you would figure, that he would have been to one of those Pro Bowls. Just a great career with the Saints. Quiet guy, but he did all his talking on the field.
Well, obviously it was quiet numbers, too, in the eyes of people who don't want to be voting him into a Pro Bowl or at least getting an opportunity to play in a Pro Bowl. Was he Pro Bowl material? I mean, there's a lot of receivers on some of these teams with some of these quarterbacks that, the name recognition. He had just a quiet name. You didn't hear much about him.
His chest or talk.
That was it. Yeah, when I say quiet, he's the kind of guy nobody knew about in the league. They knew about him, but they didn't talk about him as much. And he'll go down as one of the greatest players to ever play for New Orleans Saints. There's no doubt about that. Everything speaks for himself. He's a great person to be around. He's never had any issues off the field. Class act. I hate to see him leave, but that's part of the business. It is part of the deal. You got to realize this. Your time's going to come and go, and they got to make change. Now, if he restructures maybe and they can cut a deal down the road, bring him back that way, I don't see it happening. I just feel like it's time to let him go.
One of the things is everybody brings up the replacement. Mickey Loomis went on Sirius satellite radio and said, Brandon Coleman's the guy. Man, come on. I mean, you've had 2 years. He's flashed it, and that's what he's going to be. He's going to be a flash player in this league. He's never going to put up those consistent numbers we saw week in, week out with Marcus Colston. I think this draft class, you've got to look, maybe not in the first or second round, but comes in round 3, 4, 5, you got to look for a big target receiver, a guy that's going to give you some size. That's something Drew has always liked. If it's a big, tall tight end or if it's a tall receiver, he likes those receivers with size. And Sean Payton likes him. Other than Brandon Cooks, most of the receivers he's picked have been 6 foot tall and over. I think the Saints going to have to use a draft choice to bring in a receiver that'll fill the shoes of Colston.
Well, obviously, if it's not a receiver, you go through the draft. You got to look at the free agency. Who's out there that's got some years still left on him that you can bring in to replace Colston? And I look at it this way, Mike, you as well as I know this. You better have some weapons of who you got to throw to. You can't go out there and get 5'9", 5'8" guys. You got a few of those on the team. You got Snead, you got Cooks. That's good enough. The rest of you guys, you better have 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", because that's what the NFL is going to. Guys with height, guys you can catch, and guys you can run. Now, Colston wasn't going to run out of the picture for you, but he was catching the balls in the years past. Now he's started dropping a few bit, but I think the injuries have caught up with him as well. You better find someone. And I like what you said, 3rd, 4th, 5th round. They got Colston at the later rounds. You go out and get yourself later rounds, stock yourself up with some receivers, and like I said, wait till the free agency. See who's available, who can come in that won't cost you a lot of money.
I know you might not like me saying this, but one of the guys that I think would be a great fit, he played at Mississippi State, De'Runnya Wilson, Bear Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
Man, listen, that big
Totally
dude,
agree.
he is almost like a carbon copy of Marcus Colston. That's big size guys, and he has caught more third down, first down, throwing third down plays, made it into first downs or touchdowns than any other receiver in the SEC the last 2 years. I think Bear Wilson would be a great fit for this offense. And, you looked at when you played Mississippi State, there weren't a lot of other distractions there. You basically kind of figured Bear was going to be the guy on third down, and yet, despite the coverage, he would always get that first down or the touchdown.
Well, the key factor right now is where do they stand on that chart of where they want to go at? Is it defensive ends? Is it wide receivers? Is it defensive backs? Is it offensive linemen? You look at the guard position. I think they got to stock up in the draft, definitely on the defensive side of football. They maybe sneak a wide receiver, like you said, but it's got to be done later round. You can't waste it earlier. But I'm waiting to see who pops into the free agency. There'll be some guys in the free agency that are out there, and there'll be some guys that that still want to play, who can play maybe 2 or 3 years with your ball club. It won't cost you as much money, but you got to go young too. You got to get somebody in the draft, bring them in, because some of these receivers they have on a roster right now, they've gave them 2 or 3 years to produce, and it just hasn't happened. So right now, I say, like you said, go in the 3rd or 4th, 5th round, latter part of the round, and see who you can pick up in the draft.
One of the guys that's kind of made his intentions known that he'll probably walk away from this game is Calvin Johnson. I mean, to me, almost like he retired a year ago.
Right.
He didn't seem to be the guy with the same heart in 2015 as we've seen it in years past. And, when you don't have that heart to play anymore, you're better off walking away with this. Now, some guys, I know when you were playing, and I work with others the same way, you had to basically rip the jersey off of them before they retired. Today, I think with the money being there, a lot of the guys, I don't want to take the hits anymore, and they retire much quicker in life than they did maybe even 10 to 12 years ago.
And also, Mike, you got to look at it this way. Johnson's situation is, I guarantee if his ball club was a team that was competing for playoffs and maybe a possibility for a Super Bowl bid, he would still come back and stick around. But he feels like this team's going nowhere in Detroit. I might as well get out of here, be a little more healthy, because if you're losing and you're playing bad, they're going to throw the ball a lot to try to catch up in these football games, and they want to target him as much. So I figured the money he's made, might as well get out now.
One of the things, too, is we see some money maneuvers being done by the Saints, and they'll have money to play with in veteran free agency. I think one of the areas they have to address, and quickly, is offensive guard.
Yes.
I don't think you can draft an offensive guard and say, well, we'll stick him in there and he'll play. When you have a 37-year-old quarterback, you want a veteran offensive guard in there. And, people talk about Tim Lolito or Calamani. Those guys, man, to me, they're more of the backup guys. At this level, you've got to come out and go out and get you a veteran starting guard who's got some skins on the wall.
How about Evans? What's his name? Mathis Evans. Evan Mathis. From Denver. He's a free agent. You remember he was with the Eagles, went over to Denver, played about 8 games this year for him, wins a Super Bowl.
And now back a free agent.
That free agent, that's a guy that comes on my radar right there. Go after someone like that. You got to get somebody. Cognito, hey, I wouldn't mind.
I'd pass on that.
Cognito's a guy out there. He behaved this year in the NFL. I mean, but they got to go out and get a veteran guard. They can't go through the draft and develop. They got to get a veteran guy who can come in, maybe 2 of them as well. It's not just 1, maybe 2.
One of the guys, and I brought this up last week, Gerald Sweezy from Seattle. Tom Cable was good friends with Sean Payton. I'm sure he's got the lowdown on it. Also, too, he played alongside Max Unger all those years in Seattle. So I think early on in the free agency, I think a lot of emphasis is going to be placed on getting defensive players. You better bring in a veteran guard, because your most prized possession you better protect him. And last year, he took more hits and got more pressure than any other time in his Saints career.
Well, I think a lot of times he took hits and pressure. It came off the edges, and we all know who the guys are protecting the edges right now. And I think they got to make a decision too with Zach Strief on that edge right now. And Zach's up in age, up in weight, and his play has declined. They'll say he hasn't, but I think his play has declined. The other tackle, they solid right there.
No, he's an all-pro guy.
There's no doubt. I think they're solid at the center position. Get your guard or 2 and then go with that. But overall, they got to protect Drew, because if Drew goes down, this season's over.
The other thing, too, is kind of a strange comment that we're going to be looking for a younger tight end, and I understand that. And, Josh Hill, good guy, good special teams player, but he's not a starting tight end in the NFL. They brought in Hume from New England. He's been a career backup. I'm interested to see what they do with Ben Watson and what Ben Watson decides to do, because as a free agent, man, I would think if you're another team that's got a pretty good quarterback, I'm taking an eye and saying, man, look at the numbers he put up at 35 years old. He's not a buy player. He's a rent guy for a year or 2. But still, he showed that he still can play and play at a high level in the NFL.
Well, it's going to come down to dollars and cents.
I agree.
And if he wants a lot of dollars without having the sense to realize that you only got a couple years left maybe to play, somebody wants to give him the money, go for it. But I think the Saints are going to be at a limit of what they want to pay him. And if they can't get a deal done with with Watson, I guarantee you they'll have to start looking for another. They got some free agencies out there too in the tight end department, but you got to go ahead and get Watson back on the contract.
Yeah, I think one of the names that gets bringed up all the time is Ladarius Green, who played at UL Lafayette, has been a backup behind Antonio Gates. But I mean, come on, you got to be a stud player to beat him out.
They're talking about trying to sign him out there in San Diego with Gates. Yes.
Because too, with Gates, it's just a matter of time. If he's got a year or 2, and he's always had a foot-toe injury that has bothered him. We'll be back with more talk here on the John Fourcade Show, sponsored each week by Veterans Ford.